There is a statistic about Chicago O'Hare International Airport that tells you almost everything you need to know about what is at stake in the transformation now underway. On a typical day, more aircraft take off and land at O'Hare than at virtually any other airport in the United States. The ripple effects of a major operational disruption at O'Hare do not stay in Chicago. They radiate outward across the entire national air travel network, triggering cascading delays from New York to Los Angeles, from Miami to Seattle. O'Hare is not just an airport. It is the central nervous system of American commercial aviation. And for the past 2 decades, that central nervous system has been running on aging, increasingly inadequate infrastructure. The terminals are old. The layout is congested. The runway configuration, for most of O'Hare's history, created a system of intersecting paths that made the airport uniquely vulnerable to weather disruption. One winter storm in Chicago could ground or delay hundreds of flights and send shockwaves through airline schedules across the continent. Everyone in the aviation industry knew these problems existed. The question was always whether anyone had the political will and the financial firepower to actually fix them. Now Chicago has its answer. The city is pushing forward with a program called OHare 21, a $12 billion comprehensive rebuilding of one of the most complex airports ever constructed, being executed while the airport continues to process tens of millions of passengers without pause. What is being attempted here is so logistically demanding, so financially enormous, and so consequential for American aviation that it deserves to be understood fully. Not just the gleaming architectural renderings, but the financial tensions, the airline politics, and the very real risks that come with performing open heart surgery on a beating heart. Welcome. Let us go inside OHare 21. The centerpiece of the entire OHare 21 program, the project that, when complete, will define what the new O'Hare looks and feels like, is the O'Hare Global Terminal. This is not a renovation. It is not a modernization of an existing building. It is a complete demolition of the current Terminal 2, one of the oldest active structures at the airport, and the construction of an entirely new facility in its place, designed from the ground up to serve the demands of 21st century global aviation. Terminal 2 at O'Hare has served the airport for decades, but it has aged into a facility that represents everything the modernization program is trying to move away from. Low ceilings, cramped gate areas, outdated processing systems, and an interior that communicates age rather than aspiration. For an airport that is supposed to function as America's gateway to the world, Terminal 2 has long been one of the weakest points in the passenger experience. The O'Hare Global Terminal is designed to replace it with something genuinely ambitious. World-renowned architectural firms have been engaged to create a building that integrates domestic and international flight operations under a single, unified roof. A design philosophy that departs significantly from the fragmented terminal model that O'Hare, like many large American airports, evolved into over the decades. The concept is to eliminate the hard boundaries between domestic and international processing, creating a fluid, seamless environment where connecting passengers can move between flights without the friction and delay that the current terminal separation imposes. The scale of the global terminal is substantial. It is designed to handle millions of additional passengers per year compared to the facility it replaces, with gate areas built to accommodate modern wide-body aircraft, security processing systems equipped with the latest screening technology, and a commercial and amenity program that Chicago hopes will reflect the city's reputation as one of the great cultural and culinary capitals of North America. In its full completed form, the O'Hare Global Terminal is intended to be the kind of facility that makes a lasting first impression, the kind of arrival experience that tells an international traveler from the moment they step off the plane that they have arrived somewhere that takes them seriously. The demolition of Terminal 2 and the early phase construction work on the Global Terminal represent some of the most visible and dramatic activity currently underway at OHare, and they set the stage for the broader transformation of the airport's passenger experience over the coming years. Flanking the global terminal project and extending the capacity gains it is designed to deliver are two brand new satellite concourses being built as part of the OHare 21 master plan. These are not extensions of existing buildings. They are entirely new structures, designed and constructed to expand the airport's gate capacity, modernize its baggage handling systems, and create the kind of passenger amenity environment that increasingly defines the competitive difference between airports and the global travel market. Satellite concourses, structures positioned away from the main terminal building and connected to it by underground walkways or automated people movers, allow an airport to add significant gate capacity without expanding the footprint of the main terminal in ways that would further complicate an already dense operational environment. At OHare, where space is genuinely constrained and the active airfield surrounds the terminal complex on all sides, the satellite concourse model is both an architectural choice and a practical necessity. The new concourses are being designed with modern gate configurations capable of handling the full range of aircraft types currently in commercial service, from narrow-body regional jets to the wide-body international aircraft that represent the highest value traffic for any hub airport. Baggage routing systems in both facilities are being built with advanced automation that should meaningfully reduce the rate of mishandled bags, a persistent operational headache at high-volume hub airports that costs airlines significant money and passengers significant frustration. Together, the OHare Global Terminal and the two new satellite concourses represent a fundamental expansion and modernization of OHare's passenger handling capacity. When the program reaches completion, the airport will be able to serve substantially more passengers per year with a dramatically improved experience. The gap between the Chicago that global aviation travelers experience today and the Chicago that OHare 21 is designed to deliver is, on paper, enormous. But of all the components in the OHare 21 program, perhaps the one with the most direct and measurable impact on the airport's day-to-day operational performance is not any terminal building at all. It is the runway system. For most of OHare's operational history, the airport's runways were arranged in a configuration that was, by modern standards, fundamentally inefficient. The old layout featured runways that intersected one another, meaning that when one runway was in use, certain crossing runways had to be held clear to prevent collision, effectively reducing the number of aircraft that could be moving simultaneously and creating bottlenecks in the flow of traffic across the airfield. This intersecting configuration was manageable in the early years of the airport's operation, when traffic volumes were lower. As OHare grew into one of the busiest airports in the world, the limitations became increasingly apparent. The problem was compounded by Chicago's weather. OHare sits in a part of the country that experiences genuine winter conditions, heavy snow, ice, low visibility on a regular basis. When weather forced the airport to operate on a reduced number of runways, the intersecting configuration made the reduction in capacity far more severe than it needed to be. A moderate winter storm could, under the old runway layout, cut OHare's effective capacity dramatically, creating a backlog of delays that the network took days to fully absorb. The runway reconfiguration program, one of the earlier and more advanced components of the broader OHare modernization effort, has been addressing this problem by transitioning the airport to a predominantly parallel runway layout. Parallel runways, which do not intersect one another, can be operated simultaneously with far fewer operational restrictions. The capacity gains from this transition are not incremental, they are structural. An airport with a well-designed parallel runway system can process meaningfully more aircraft per hour in normal conditions, and critically, can sustain much higher capacity during weather events that would have crippled the old configuration. The final phases of this runway reconfiguration are being completed as part of OHare 21, and their impact is already visible in the airport's operational data. Weather-related delays at OHare, while not eliminated, have been measurably reduced as the new runway geometry comes into full effect. For an airport whose capacity constraints were costing the American aviation network billions of dollars per year in delay-related expenses, this is genuinely significant progress. And yet, for all the ambition of the OHare 21 blueprint, the project exists within a web of financial and political tensions that have made its path forward anything but smooth, because $12 billion does not materialize without conflict, and the stakeholders surrounding OHare are among the most powerful and least easily managed in American business. At the center of the financial drama is a question that every mega-project of this scale eventually has to answer. What does it actually cost, and who pays? The official estimate for OHare 21 stands at approximately $12.1 billion, but construction industry analysts and fiscal watchdogs have raised persistent questions about whether that figure remains accurate in an environment of sustained construction cost inflation. Large infrastructure projects across the United States have experienced significant budget growth over the past several years, driven by the combined pressures of materials costs, labor markets, supply chain disruptions, and the inherent difficulty of accurately estimating the cost of construction inside an active, operating airport. The concern, expressed by multiple analysts tracking the project, is that the true cost of delivering OHare 21 to its full specifications could push substantially beyond the official estimate, and that the mechanism for managing that cost growth hasn't been fully defined. This financial uncertainty feeds directly into the most politically charged dimension of the entire project: the relationship between the city of Chicago and its two anchor airlines, United and American. Together, these two carriers handle the vast majority of traffic at OHare. Their gates, their crews, their maintenance operations, and their connecting hub functions are what make OHare the central node of American aviation that it is. And because the financing model for OHare's modernization relies heavily on the fees and lease payments generated by airline operations at the airport, United and American are not simply tenants. They are, in a meaningful economic sense, the financial foundation on which the entire program rests. That position gives them leverage, and they have not been shy about using it. Reports from aviation journalists and industry analysts throughout the development of the OHare 21 plan have detailed a persistent and sometimes heated negotiation between the city and its anchor carriers over the scope, the cost allocation, and the timeline of the global terminal project in particular. The airline's concern is straightforward. If the construction costs escalate beyond the current estimates, the mechanism for recovering those costs flows through the fees charged to airlines for using the airport's facilities. Higher airport fees mean higher operating costs for United and American, and higher operating costs ultimately translate into pressure on ticket prices, a pressure that, in a competitive market, the airlines may not be able to fully pass on to consumers without losing passengers to rival carriers. The result has been a negotiation dynamic that observers have described as genuinely tense. There have been reports of the airlines pushing to scale back certain elements of the global terminal design, to phase the construction more conservatively, or to delay components of the program to reduce near-term cost exposure. The city of Chicago, for its part, has maintained that the full scope of OHare 21 is necessary, and that compromising the vision of the project to satisfy short-term airline cost concerns would undermine the long-term competitive position of the airport. Finding a resolution that satisfies both the city's ambitions and the airline's financial realities has proven to be one of the most complex and consequential negotiations in the recent history of American airport development. Layered on top of the financial and political tensions is the purely operational challenge of executing a construction program of this scale inside one of the world's most active airports. This is not an abstract risk. It is a daily reality for the thousands of construction workers, airport operations staff, and airline personnel who are simultaneously trying to build the future and operate the present at OHare. The challenge is perhaps best understood through the lens of sequencing. Every phase of construction at OHare must be carefully choreographed around the operational requirements of the active airfield. When Terminal 2 is being demolished, the gates and facilities affected must be taken offline in a sequence that does not simultaneously remove capacity. The airlines need to maintain their schedules. When new taxiways or ground infrastructure are being modified to accommodate construction logistics, air traffic control and airfield operations must adapt their procedures to maintain safe and efficient aircraft movement. When utility systems are being upgraded or rerouted to support new terminal buildings, the existing systems must remain operational throughout. Any significant miscalculation in this sequencing, any construction delay that forces an unplanned closure of a gate area, any infrastructure modification that creates an unanticipated bottleneck in taxiway movement, any supply chain disruption that leaves a partially completed facility unable to receive passengers, has consequences that extend far beyond OHare's property lines. Given the airport's role as a major connecting hub for both United and American, a capacity disruption at OHare ripples through thousands of flight connections daily. The stakes of getting the sequencing wrong are, in the most literal sense, national. Aviation infrastructure experts who have followed mega projects at other major hubs, Heathrow's Terminal 5 construction, the expansion of Dallas-Fort Worth, the Denver International Airport original build, consistently emphasize that the active airport construction environment is where the gap between planning and reality tends to be most unforgiving. Plans made in conference rooms encounter physical constraints, labor realities, and weather conditions that no model fully captures. The question is not whether surprises will occur. The question is how large the buffer in the construction program is to absorb them without cascading into operational impact. So where does all of this leave OHare 21? And what should the aviation world and the traveling public realistically expect from it? The honest assessment is that OHare 21 is a program of genuine necessity and genuine ambition, executing against genuine constraints. The case for the investment is strong. OHare's current infrastructure is a competitive liability. The runway reconfiguration is already delivering measurable benefits. The global terminal and satellite concourses, when complete, will give Chicago an airport passenger experience that finally matches the city's standing as a world-class hub. The long-term return on a well-executed $12 billion modernization of the most strategically important airport in the United States is compelling. But the path to that outcome runs through a gauntlet of financial uncertainty, airline negotiation, construction complexity, and operational risk that makes the journey far from guaranteed. The budget will face pressure. The airline relationships will require continuous management. The construction sequencing will encounter situations that test the plans. Whether the city of Chicago and its partners have the institutional discipline, the financial flexibility, and the political resilience to navigate all of that and still deliver a program close to its original vision. That is the question OHare 21 will spend the next decade answering. What is certain is that the stakes could not be higher. OHare is not just Chicago's airport. It is, in a very real sense, America's airport. Getting this right matters not just for the passengers walking through the new global terminal, but for the health and efficiency of the entire national aviation system that flows through this single extraordinary intersection in the skies above Illinois. Drop a comment below. Do you think United and American are right to push back on the global terminal costs? Or is Chicago correct to hold the line on the full vision? Like, subscribe to Mega Airport Works, and stay with us as as we track the biggest mega projects on the planet.